going to be making Bran Muffins, which are my favorite muffins. I always kind of thought that they were old people food growing up, but they're actually really tasty. They're pretty healthy for you, and you can definitely make alterations to make them a little bit more healthy. And I actually hate following recipes, but when it comes to baking, you do need to have some sort of a base because you need certain things to make it work out right in the end, which just through experience, I do know those things for the most part. So today I'm gonna kind of follow a recipe, but also throw in some of my own things just to make it healthier and a little more tasty to my preferences. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to get some things soaking so that they can be ready to go at the end. So I'm gonna take my dates. I don't have any raisins or craisins, so I'm using dates and walnuts, and you can really use any nut or dried fruit that you like in your muffins. I'm going to mix them together, and I want them to soften up a little bit, so I'm going to take some hot water and just pour it right over them. You can see it took out a lot of color too. So we are going to let this sit until the very end. We'll mix these in and straighten them before we do that. The other thing that we actually need to let sit is the bran. We want it to soften up, and that is going to be one of the starches in here. So instead of just using all flour, we're going to use bran cereal, which is kind of neat. I've never used bran cereal in a recipe before, but we are going to try it out today. So I need 2 cups of cereal. So we're going to take my measuring cup. You can see 2 cups. I'm going to fill it up. And that's 2 cups, so we'll throw this in my bowl. And then for the milk, I do not use normal milk for the most part in anything. I try to be dairy free. So I'm going to use my oat milk that I made just the other day. And you can see there's not a lot left. I've been using it for coffee and smoothies. So I need 1.25 cups of this. And I'm actually going to do a little less than that because I have a surprise ingredient that I'm going to add. So I'm going to do just under 1.25 cups. You can see this. Just under 1.25 cups, so I only have a little bit left. And then I'm actually going to throw in some Captain Morgan spiced rum, because why not? Alcohol has a really great flavor once it cooks out, especially the spiced rum, and why not? It's fun to experiment. So I only put like a couple tablespoons of this in there. So I've got my milk and my cereal in here. I'm gonna pour it over it, and that is going to soak. I'm just giving it a little stir. That is going to soak until it's ready to go. You don't need to warm your milk. You could if you wanted to, but it's not necessarily necessary because it's going to soften up by itself anyways. So now I'm going to start in another bowl with the dry ingredients in one bowl. So you're supposed to do dry ingredients in one bowl, wet ingredients in another bowl. I don't ever do that, and everything always turns out perfectly fine. So we don't have to do that. I need egg whites, not whole eggs. So I am going to crack my eggs. Maybe I can do it up here closer so you guys can see how I do it. Hopefully I don't mess this up today. So, oh, not holding it high enough. To get just the egg whites, you just want to break it in half, and then just go like that. Hopefully you can see it. Just like that. So I got all of the egg white out of there, and I am going to save the egg yolk because I can use that for cooking. I'm going to make an egg bake later, so I'll just save that. We need 2 egg whites, so I'm going to do another egg white. It's not a huge deal if you get some egg yolk in there. For certain recipes like meringues or frostings, it's very important that you don't get the yolk in there, but for this recipe it doesn't matter. We just try to get the best, and I did not get any yolk in there, so I'm proud of myself. And so I've I've got my egg whites in here. I don't think you can see it without me spilling all over it. But I'll put that into my big bowl. And then for the sugar, we are going to use a 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. And then we're going to use a 1/2 cup of applesauce. No sugar added, so I just happen to have some applesauce packets. And this is 4 ounces, so that's a 1/2 cup. And I'm just gonna throw that into my bowl. And the brown sugar. If you don't know how to measure brown sugar, you just pack it into the thing. You don't want it loose. I'm not gonna measure it because I know how much a 1/3 of a cup is. And when I'm baking, I hate to waste all the measuring utensils. And I typically go a little bit less than what the recipe says on the sugar anyways, because you really don't need all that sugar. It's not good for you. I mean, none of the sugar is good for you, but you can always reduce it. You don't have to use as much as they call for. You can also add other things like mashed bananas. The applesauce is a good addition to adding sugar without adding tons of sugar. You can use coconut sugar, which is really good, and it has a similar flavor to brown sugar, so I would suggest using that. We are going to add some vanilla, and I always just pour a little dash in there. I love vanilla so much. Can't go without vanilla. And we need, it's 1 teaspoon of vanilla if you're measuring. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So put that in there. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. I always add a little extra cinnamon. Cinnamon's really good for you. It's good also if you have blood sugar problems. It can help to regulate that. And so I always do like 4 times as much cinnamon as you need, but I love cinnamon. So that's really up to you. And then, so we've got all this in the bowl. And this recipe for the milk, it did call for skim milk, so the oat milk is good because it's not super thick like whole milk would be. It's more like a skim milk if you were to compare it. So it works out really well. And then the only thing that I am missing is the flour. So I need 1 cup of flour, and I'm just using normal flour. You could definitely, if you know how to cook gluten-free things, just replace this part with gluten-free flour. I am not a good gluten-free baker. I just have not really tried yet. So now I've got all these ingredients in here, and I am going to mix it up with a spoon. Get it all mixed in there. And then I am going to strain my walnuts and my dates and let those sit over the sink for a minute so you can get all the water out of it. You do not want to add any extra liquid that you don't need. My oat bran has soaked up all of the milk, so it's nice and soft now, so we are going to take that and throw it in there. Using oat bran cereal is nice because it's more versatile than just getting the like wheat bran or oat bran powder or flour, because you can only bake with that, whereas the cereal, then you have cereal and you have something to bake with. So it's kind of neat. And it's coming together really, really well, actually. So that's kind of neat. The cereal just broke down into it and became kind of mushy, and that's what we wanted. So now we are going to throw in our dates and our walnuts. And then you're supposed to preheat the oven to 375, which I did not do, so I'll do that now. And I am going to let this just sit here. That way all the flavors can kind of come together. I never really throw anything in the oven like ASAP, because I think it's always better to let the flavors come together. I know it's going to when it bakes too. But we're going to put them in at 375. We're going to let them bake for 15 to 17 minutes. And then I will let you know how they are at the end. So our muffins are fresh out of the oven. I baked them at 375 for about 15 minutes. And a good way to tell if they're done, so you just touch right here, and if it springs back up, that means that they're done. If it sinks down, then it's probably still a little gooey in the center. You can also take a fork or a toothpick and stick it through there, but I just always like to touch them and feel it. So I can't wait to try these. I did add chocolate chips to half the batch after I showed you guys adding the walnuts and the dates. So if you just cut these open, put a little butter on them, they're pretty amazing.
Oh my gosh, so good.